All right, I guess we're live. So before we get started, just want to say hello to all of you guys. I have Alvin here. We're going to have an amazing conversation. I'm really excited for this. But before we start, if any one of you guys are in the chat and you could hear us and the sound is fine, let us know. If not, that's perfectly fine. We'll go from there. But before we start getting into like deeper topics, we'll just have Alvin give like a basic introduction and how he started in coding, his story, and how he found this channel, and then we'll get into like the deeper topics that we planned on talking about. So Alvin, would you like to
Yeah,
introduce yourself?
yeah. So what's going on, everybody? I'm Alvin. I got into, I guess I'm 34, and I got into a computer science degree uh, in my 30s. I believe I had either just turned 30 or I was turning 30. I forget which one it is. Probably, anyways, doesn't matter. I was driving a forklift at the time when I actually enrolled in my first computer science course. I ended up leaving that job. I was driving forklift and pretty much not liking doing that kind of work. I had spent most of my 20s just doing random jobs like that. I had gotten out of the Navy, when I was 23, and then kind of just drifted doing those kind of jobs, forklift, call center. But at the end of that forklift job, I was like, man, I got to do something different because I'm not fulfilled. I'm not happy doing this kind of work. It's repetitive, no thought, it wasn't challenging. So I enrolled at a community college, took my first computer science course, and yeah, I'm from that point to here. I'm at the university. I did a transfer. I'm about 1 year from graduating, depending on how fast I go with this. Um, yeah, I'm in the upper division courses here at the university. So yeah, I mean, it's been a really good journey. I'm glad I made that first call to enroll in that first course. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know what a boot camp was. I just
Yeah.
was, yeah. So yeah, I just enrolled in college. So this is my perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and that's awesome because you're doing like the computer science degree where people say you could break into the field without a computer science degree. And I don't want to take away from anybody that if you're young, you have the opportunity, or like at any age, if you're able to go get a computer science degree, it will never hurt. And there's a lot of benefit to that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And those of us who don't have degrees, like myself, I think we're going to get a good perspective from Alvin to kind of figure out what to do, like in our shoes, to be able to kind of understand what you're getting out of a computer science degree. But I don't want to spoil anything, so you guys are gonna have to watch this whole live stream. But before we continue, let's say hello to some of the people here. We have Casper, hello, saying hello. We have Murai, hey, thanks for letting me know that our audio is great. Luke, great to see you as always. Dustin, what's up, Dustin? Good to see you. Luke saying Grand Admiral Thrawn. I can't read. Dustin, big hint claps here. Yeah, you guys, by the way, anytime you guys have questions, definitely let us know in the chat, because the point of these live streams is to provide value for you guys to succeed in what you're doing, and to help you get that next role, that job, or to improve your current position. And I'm really thankful like Alvin like agreed to come on and talk about it, because it's important to get a perspective from both sides. Because let me tell you this, if I'm a channel that sells like courses, I'm just going to tell you how all you need to do is to take my online courses, right? If I'm a channel that sells boot camps, I'm just going to talk about how awesome my boot camp is and how this is the only way to break into the field. And if I'm a university, I'm just going to swear to God that computer science is what you need. And so what is the right choice? Like, the right choices depends on where you are in your life. For me, I couldn't physically go back to school, and let me tell you, if I was younger and I had a different living situation, I would definitely go back and get a computer science degree, because a degree will never hurt you. You know what I'm saying? Like, once Alvin finishes, which he's almost done, no one's going to be able to take that away from him, and that's a huge plus. And if you don't have a degree, you have to make that up somehow, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So jumping in right into it, Alvin, in terms of like what made you decide to go to computer science degree? Because obviously you could have went the self-taught route, and you could have went to boot camp, even though you're like, I didn't, you said you didn't really know what a boot camp was about, so you went this college route. But what was your thinking behind that?
So my thinking behind that, so when I chose it, um, I kind of, I when I was in the Navy, I was an electronic technician. That doesn't say much. It just means you can read. And but yeah, so I was familiar with you know how computers worked, and basically like the basic like what a port is basically, and how to link up networks, and do basic troubleshooting on PCBs. So, I was looking for something that was related to what I knew. And I knew that computer science was a thing. It wasn't something that I had been like, entirely like, informed about, but it was related and it seemed really interesting. So when I enrolled in that first course, um, they threw C++ at us and then JavaScript. Well, when I went through that whole process of getting those initial classes done, I did realize that most of the web stuff, well, not just the web stuff, but a majority of what we're learning, you can teach yourself. And then I realized that you can teach yourself anything. The degree is just a way of that we've been doing our education system to validate someone's, to validate the education system that they went through. But that doesn't mean that someone's not able to just teach themselves and come out with something that they've created that other people can either enjoy, or that's one and the same, enjoy and benefit from. So what did I get from it? Yeah, that was my experience through the first year, or the first time at community college, taking the computer science courses. And then it kind of just evolved from there when I transferred to the university. Things got more serious. The classes were obviously larger. We did a lot more working with the TAs also. There's a lot more resources there for you, although they don't hold your hand. There's just so many more resources available to you to ask questions, where at the community college, it's it's getting you to that point of the upper division classes to be ready to take on that workload, because there's projects due pretty much every 2 weeks for each computer science class that you would have. So they assign a project and then you just go through that cycle. I don't know if I answered the whole question, but
no, it's a pretty good start. Pretty good start. And by the way, guys, if you're watching this, we're talking about a perspective of a computer science student, talking about his experience has been, why it's important for us to understand, especially if you don't have a computer science degree. And by the way, if you're jumping on, like this stream, put as many likes as you want, because the more likes you give, the more people YouTube will show the stream to, so they could benefit from it. And so I think we're gonna have an awesome conversation. So one thing that I know, Alvin and I talked off camera before, is that he said when he was doing his computer science stuff, they went from a bunch of different languages. And that experience from switching from one language to another language to another language to another language had kind of make him realize what he's actually learning and the importance. And the importance being, in a nutshell, is that it doesn't matter what programming language you do, but it's kind of learning how to think about it. And that's, I guess, would be the next jumping in point, Alvin, is to kind of talk about what is the core message or the core thing that you learn as a computer science student that you feel is the most important thing that's been helping you to get to the point that you're at?
Yeah. So I guess continuing on from where I left off at. So we have projects due every 2 weeks or so. So they threw. So I when I transferred to when I made the transfer, we used C++. I knew a little bit of JavaScript at that time. They said, okay, great. During data structures, we started using C more to write our binary search trees. Um, in our algorithms class, it was just writing on paper before we actually solved the problem. And then we used Python to write our binary search trees to determine the shortest path, things like that, shortest path algorithms. Um, and then in software development, we used Python again just because it was easier to write microservices that we had to use WebSockets for in C. Well, we use Python sockets, but they're C sockets on the
Right.
lower level to communicate with another classmate and we'll connect our microservice to theirs. In my database class, we used Python, PHP, and SQL to learn how to interact with the database and make the appropriate queries, use you know stored functions to, like, when you make a change on the front end of a site, that will trigger another event on the server. Say
Yep.
you delete someone from a database, well, that entity might be connected to multiple entities. So when that main entity that you deleted is deleted, you have to delete them from those other relations. Those would be something that you would use a stored function for, because you don't want trigger effect.
Yep.
We wrote assembly uh, where we just write
Which is
assembly.
insane.
But the point is that not. I mean, there were some that had experience, since they were teenagers, writing, coding. But a lot of the students that I was with had no experience writing in any of these languages. We were given, the documentation and then the basic principles. But at a certain point, probably when we got to the 300 level classes, they stopped really, they let go of your hand a lot of the time. And, they gave you the problem, and this applies to every single class. They give you the assignment or the project that's due in 2 weeks. The first week is usually a lot of asking questions and planning. And then by the end of that first week, you should have something working. And then that last week, you should be fixing the bugs for that project. But it was always new.
Yeah.
That's how it's been up until this point. It's always been new. I've never touched most of these languages. But what I'm getting at this point is they're instilling solving the problem first before you ever write your line of code. Because the computer science it's not about coding. It's about can you solve the problem on paper? And then you just code out the solution. And if that solution needs to be written in X language, well, do you know how to write that language? Oh, you don't? Okay, figure out that language and then solve the problem.
So basically, you're learning how to think like a computer scientist, how to approach problem solving in a very methodical way, and then understanding that the programming language, it's not the end of the thing, it's a tool that you use for whatever use case is most appropriate for. So that's why they put you in a mix in different languages, jump from one tech to another,
Yeah.
because the problem solving process is the same regardless what language you use. And I really want you to like talk a little bit more about this idea of, like you were saying, writing stuff on paper, planning stuff out, because a lot of times the majority of the beginners, they jump in straight into code and they literally try to solve problems inside their code editor. And I know this because I've done that. And you just spin your wheels, and then half the time you'll code a lot of stuff, and then you realize it was not the right approach, and then you have to kind of go
Yeah.
back and redo like 80% of the work. So can you talk a little bit more about that and why that's like super important? And by the way, guys, keep asking questions. I do see some questions queued up, and we'll definitely get to them for sure. But let's put some more questions in. And again, keep liking, because I want to get this conversation out there to as many people that will watch it, because it's very important to talk about the truth of what it takes to become a developer from all the perspective, not just about the hype and the dream that some people sell you when you're looking to learn to code, because you're like, oh, I want to have that nice car, I want to do this, this, and that, and then in 3 months you're going to make $300 billion. We're going to talk about that 3 months timeline though, because it's very interesting when you think about it from a perspective of a computer science degree. But let's not get too far away. Let's talk about pen to paper, solving problems on paper, planning stuff out, and why that's important.
So if you can't, so when we were talking offline, I said that if you can't write out the solution to the problem, how are you going to code it? How are you going to code it? If you can't think of every single thing that you want to do or account for, like your error checking, you're not error checking edge cases. You're not going to be able to just slam out a block of code. And I mean, we've all done it, where you just kind of just fumble through the whole thing. But I mean, the benefit I found in planning first is, like in our operating systems class, where we were doing multi-threading and using mutex yeah, it's off. It's a like a it's a it's a we had to write our own shell in Bash and then account for like whether or not a service was running using the mutex thing. You can look it up offline.
Yep.
It's in a Linux doc. Anyways, but like, so when we were doing things like that, and like in that class, we had to write our own webs, our own sockets in C, and stream a private key, and then get the other key back. Well, we had to account for so many things to check, like what characters we were reading, where is the string starting and stopping at, like. So making the plan first helps you identify where you're going to need to do those error checks, and where you're going to need to check your boundaries. Yep. And it helps you think through, hey, well, what could I expect if this happens?
Right.
And then you start breaking down your code into, a function should do one thing. It shouldn't do multiple things.
Right.
So you start breaking down the problems that you're encountering during your plan as function either
that do one thing.
Either pure functions which don't change the state of the outside world, or they do some sort of modification that check. Yep. Yeah. So it helps you. So writing helps you think through whatever you're thinking about. And you don't have to. I'll leave it at that.
But like, right, like in the most basic sense, like this idea of like people, like when I took my a computer science, I didn't take computer science course. I took a C++ course in college before I dropped out. And one of the things they talked about is writing stuff in pseudocode first, and basically in like plain English, but kind of simulating what you want. You know, get this from API, check if that exists. If that exists, do
Yeah,
this
yeah.
and that, and then like break it down to function stuff like that. And I realized that's such an important thing. And just until recently, just to those of you who are watching, I've been going to interviews, and some of the interviews that I did terrible in is I would be presented with a problem, and I would read the question, but I would not really like understand what they were saying. I just want to get into the code and try to solve it with code. And a lot of times that was like a very bad approach because like I didn't know what I was trying to do, and it was kind of like shooting an arrow in the dark. And what I started to do now is literally inside the thing that I'm doing on the interview, I would write out first in comments, what do I need to do into steps? And once I have that written down, kind of like pseudocode or whatever you want to call it, in steps, then I will start going to each step and creating that, you know, kind of idea. And just recently I did a tutorial. It's like very simple thing. It's like finding odds and even. And I didn't go into like as much detail as I'm saying now, but I basically did this approach. Like, let's put in the comments of what the steps we need, and then let's break that down into steps and solve each step individually, so we're taking everything into account. And if I didn't do that before, I would spend a lot more time trying to solve the problem. So yeah, that's like, I really like that. You know, we're going to talk about like kind of like, you know, how can you get the computer science education on your own a little bit later. But Murai had a question. Do you have a favorite course project that you did in your computer science degree? And, you know, like something that you like the best.
I can show you it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in my repository.
Yeah, by the way, while like,
here.
Yeah, like
it's not my favorite one, but it was fun to make that API service in our operating.
Yeah, and we could talk about it later. By the way,
engineering class. Yeah.
Yep. Like I don't know if like my screen share is showing the right thing. It's not showing the right thing. Let me switch my screen. But Alvin has a YouTube channel, and here it is. It's Endpoint, and what I like about it is that, you know, he basically doesn't care about entertaining people like, you know, some of us on YouTube because we're YouTubers. He cares about coding. He cares about programming. And so he's actually only putting out stuff where he's solving problems that are worth solving, and he's sharing them because he thinks they're going to help other programmers and developers. He's not like, you know, trying to tell you the day in life of a web developer and bunch of drone footage. He's literally just diving deep into the code and going through. So I definitely say you guys should follow his channel, and I'll be like recommending his channel a lot, like not just like this time around, because I think it's like important to follow actual developers rather than YouTubers who are developers. And like, you know what I mean? Because like you do want to, like, if you want to become a developer, you got to do a developer type of stuff. Like, here we go. Developer type of stuff. And it's like very important to kind of understand that. And like, I have so many arguments with people who are just like, either because they didn't try enough, or they have this perception based on what they see on YouTube or Instagram, what it really means to become a developer. And like but the point is, learn the skill, be able to build things, build, you know, a skill set that you could demonstrate and do it. And education is very important. And that's why I wanted to have Alvin to come on and talk about his computer science degree, because I don't want you guys to take anything like understand that if you could get it for sure. It is super important. Before we continue, I want to say we have DevOps in the house directive. Yo, guys, if you're looking anything about DevOps, you want to do, you know, all that cool stuff, check out his channel. And one day I want to have him to interview him and talk about like all the stuff he does and why someone might want to learn more about DevOps and how to like do all that stuff. But go check out his channel too. Amazing guy. I'm glad he's jumping in. He's probably testing out to see how I do live streams, to see if it's crazy. But great to have you. You know, but what I was gonna say is like, so we all have seen these videos. I know I'm jumping all over the place, and you could let us know direct questions in the comments too. But this idea of like you could become a developer in 3 months and make bajillion dollars and get a whatever the fancy car is. Tell me about your first semester in computer science degree. How many months is even a semester, and how much stuff you learn? And did you feel that you felt confident that that's something you could do? And the reason why I use computer science as an example, because I don't care about any boot camps. There are certain boot camps that are very challenging, but you have to understand, like, when you're doing a degree program, the math you're learning, the stuff you're learning, all these underlying other skills, it's not easy either. So to say that 3 months of a degree is not equivalent to a boot camp is like retarded. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word, but the point is that it, just to put into perspective, you can't cram everything in 3 months, and you need to have this realistic expectation of a timeline of what you could learn. And Alvin kind of has an idea of what a realistic expectation is, but let's talk about it in the context of that 3 months period.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're always going to have those edge cases, but the our terms are 3 months long.
Yep.
Usually 3 or 4 classes will be about 12 or 15, 16 credits. I've fluctuated everywhere. I've always taken a full schedule. Um, so our terms are, yeah, 3 months. My first, so I'll only speak about the university because that's most relevant at this point.
Yep.
You know, the, I mean, there'll always be those edge cases. It's a simple answer. Like, it's not, you're going to have those people that have, been coding for, since they were
Middle school.
little kids. And
Yeah.
they just picked up on it fast because that's how they learned it while their brain was developing,
Right.
just like you can take a child and get them really good at one thing because they are developing. Now, someone like me, nearly dust, I can, I can just say, it's not
Forklift
impossible.
operator.
It just, yeah. Obviously it's not impossible. But I mean, I got to give myself some credit, but it's 3 months for a boot camp. Yeah, sure, it's possible if like you come with prior experience and you just need someone to give you a stamp of certification that, hey, what you learned in this boot camp, you can apply to whatever job you go to. But I guarantee that people that succeed in those boot camps already have prior coding experience or relevant work experience. They're not just starting from scratch unless they're, a prodigy. And those edge cases do exist also. So
Now, yeah, speaking about that, like DevOps directive, the guy who was here earlier is probably still here. He actually had a prior degree. I don't remember exactly because this was a while since I saw the interview he did, either electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. And like he basically talked about this whole idea of like understanding how system works, understanding how to solve problems. So he had that background. So for him transitioning into development, it wasn't that far-fetched because he had a lot of that problem-solving skill that you talk about that a computer science degree develops. And so for him, it's a much easier transition. If you're brand new and you're getting into the field and you're starting out, like you're not going to have those developed skills in 3 months. And I think like before, like we get a lot of hate here, like I totally understand that there's many levels of web development or programming that is not even related to like web development, that there's so many different levels. You could develop a certain skill, maybe not in 3 months if you work full time really hard, you have prior experience, maybe a year where you'll be able to get a job. But please understand that don't believe the hype. It is hard work. And you talk to anybody who does programming, like they will tell you it's constant learning. Ben Awad, who's on YouTube, somebody asked him the question, is programming easy to learn and can you learn it in 3 minutes? He's like, no, it's hard. And he's one of the smartest dudes like on YouTube talk about coding. So let's see, like before we jump, some questions and then we'll continue this. Hologram Nunchucks asks, do you use UML or do you write out steps in sentences or do you use combos or both?
I haven't seen UML, Universal Modeling Language, since I've entered the university. We use, like if we're planning, like in our database course, we were using this thing called, I think it was ERL, Entity Relationship, something, where we would graph out our queries and our tables our relations. But no, I haven't seen UML in a long time, but I am familiar with it. Just haven't really seen it. Uh, but I mean, in its base form, it's just, writing out what you need.
Yeah. DevOps directive, he's like, yeah, I studied mechanical engineering, but switching to software plus web was still drinking from a fire hose. And that's like the whole point I'm going to say is that like I love when people give their real truth of what it is, because they're not selling a bootcamp or they're not selling a course. There's nothing wrong with that, but at least set people's expectation realistically to a point that, when they start on this endeavor and 3 months later, they don't get to where they think they should, they don't give up. Set realistic expectation, because if you don't, you're going to be disappointed every time. And I'll give you one example. Like before I got into development, long time ago, I took this electronics tech school. Before boot camps, there were these technical schools that you pay whatever for electronics or whatever, the 1990s, or late 90s, 1999, whatever. And it was like a 3 months program, and the type of people that were getting there who were after 3 months graduating and getting these high paying jobs were basically immigrants from other countries who had computer science degree, engineering degree, except their country's degree unfortunately is not recognized in US, but they had the skill, and they were literally taking this whatever that type of school was called. It wasn't a boot camp. I forgot what they were called before. Kind of like a trade school. And they were just doing it just so they could, through that school, get an interview somewhere. And then once they get an interview, they could showcase that they know all that stuff. And so those people, they already have the experience. They already have the background. And, they were able to make that transition. But for regular people who've never done anything like it, it's very difficult and takes a lot of studying and a lot of stuff. By the way, keep liking. The more you guys like this, show Alvin some love, because the more you guys like, the more people will see this stream recommended to them. I think it'll be awesome. And here's another question for you, Alvin, and then we'll continue on our discussion from Murai. Are you currently looking for a development job and going through the interviews, or waiting until you graduate? It's a great question, by the way.
I'm going the hard route that, is not recommended, is freelancing.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later.
I mean, that's a hard one. But I technically work at the university, but there's really no hours because of, COVID. But yeah, I'm not opposed to. I am looking on Indeed and LinkedIn, but I just got to get my skills even. I just have to keep improving. The point is not to go fast with this. Well, that's how I'm approaching it. The point is not to get there fast, because if you get there fast and you're not good at it, everything that you've done is kind of pointless. Because what if someone throws a question at me? I'm going to need to solve it, because, that software might depend on, saving someone's life. For instance, that reminds me, before I had transferred, I had applied to Active 911, and I got through the development process, the interview process, and we had to log in through a Grok, in Grok, something like that. Yep. And then solve this problem to get to the next step of the interview. So I solved it in JavaScript. I'll get to the end point of this. And so during the interview, she wanted to see how I would make write a class function that would give percentages of how much of something is, just like a table. Basic now. He's write a anyways. I sped to that interview just to get the interview, but when it came time to show my skills at that time, I had none. I had just, I had Googled everything. I'm not saying I still don't do that now, but that problem is something that you should be able to solve on the spot at this point. I rushed myself just to get that interview. And that the active 911 system, it locates, it's for first responders. They're a company out here where I live. They do location services and just anything related to someone making a 911 call. I'm still there's one position opening, but they're looking for someone who's graduated already.
Yeah.
Or has, the relevant work experience.
Yep.
So I may reapply again. But yeah, so I'm not rushing. I would say don't rush, get good.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. What I was gonna say also, I like how you said that you're gonna go the freelancing route, but you did acknowledge how difficult it is. And DevOps Directive also does a lot of contract and freelance work. And I was gonna say he had a pretty interesting interview with Kevin Powell, the CSS guy. Look it up, really good. And I think one thing that you have to take account, if you want to do freelancing but you don't have a skill that you developed through experience, don't go into freelancing. Because anybody who says to me freelancing is easier, I call BS on that right away, because I know they didn't try freelancing at all. And if they did, they weren't successful in it 100%. I know that because I've done it. And maybe I've done some WordPress and I wasn't able to make enough money to sustain high income consistently. But before that, I ran not really relatable to it, but in terms of the business side of it, I do understand. I ran a martial arts school for 10 years. And the fact when you're freelancing, you have to understand is that there's nobody there's no net to catch you when you fall. For instance, if you can't get clients, you're not going to get paid. You can't pay the rent. Sometimes imagine you have a good week, you make a lot of money, and then you have a bad week, you still have to pay the rent at the bad week. You still have to pay employers. You still have to do accounting. You still have to find clients. There's so much stuff that goes into it that, to me, if you're just starting out, regardless if you're doing college boot camp or self-taught route, is that getting a job first to get that initial experience before doing freelancing is the smartest thing you have to do. And then we have some questions here. Let's see here. Actually from Directive, I can't read because my screen is so small. Is there a particular type of software you're most excited about, thinking about pursuing after graduation? Web, desktop, mobile, embedded system, etc. Great question.
Yeah. I want to jump back into Solidity to write, smart contracts. I want to see what Cardano they're offering for their, when I say Ethereum and Cardano, I'm not talking about the coins themselves I'm interested in what they can do as far as, transactions.
Listen, I don't want anybody to steal your idea, so I just want to give you that warning. I want to give you that warning. I don't know if you want to share it. I'm just being honest. Because that was amazing. What you told me was,
there's a lot of
follow his channel.
People pay a lot of attention, rightfully so. The money brings in, the things that grow, but those types of things can do a lot more than, just go up or down on a spreadsheet. They can represent a lot of transactions and do a lot of good for people throughout the world, and maybe correct some business practices. They can just do good in the world. It's not all about the money. Embedded systems, I don't know. It's fun to toy around with. But yeah, I would, I don't have anything for embedded. The web is fun because the web is an entry point for nearly everything that you just mentioned. There's nothing that doesn't have a website, that doesn't do something on the back end. I think WebAssembly is going to be huge. Not WebAssembly, but WebAssembly. That's going to be huge because a few months, probably 6 or 7 ago, I ran into this person who made a site that controlled his home server. He wrote it all in assembly. He made his own assembly processor that you could send the commands to from a client, and then execute those assembly instructions from a web page. That used WebAssembly. There's no JavaScript. Well, I mean, there was JavaScript on the front end, but everything translated down to WebAssembly, and then he translated it down to assembly to get his Bash-like operating system to work and read the assembly code. It was a really cool project, but I mean, so the point is, there's a lot that you can do with the web, and that's the central point of everything, and it's just fun. It's a fun thing.
One thing I wanted to add to that, because we talk about all this stuff and it's getting deep and deep and deep, and I'm like, oh, what is that? Like, but the point is, what I want to say is actually, like, for those of us who don't have a computer science degree, and we'll talk about with Alvin, like, what can you do to kind of fill in that gap. But just like DevOps Directive said, like, he like web, desktop, mobile, embedded system, etc. There's so many different levels to development, like DevOps, cloud stuff, whatever. There's so much stuff that you could do, that there's a place for everyone. So don't let it freak you out that if you're missing one thing because you started late, like me in my like super late 30s, there's no way in hell I could go back to school. I was actually telling Alvin, just so you understand, my thinking is that my next job that I get, if they're willing to pay me to go back to school, I'm going to go back part-time and get a computer science degree, because I enjoy this trade enough that, to me, just from my own curiosity to get a better understanding how things work will be like super important to me. You know what I mean? And so, like, I just want to stress to you guys, don't let this freak you out. Like, just because Alvin went to computer science degree, like a lot of people do, by the way, who want to get a degree, especially if they're younger and they're able to. And if you're in, I'm going to tell you, if you're in Alvin's situation, because you went like in your 30s, early 20 to like late.
I think I had. So like, I just turned 30.
Let me tell you this, like, if you, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just turned 30. No, I hadn't turned 30 when I enrolled in my first course. So I just turned 34 a few months ago. So if I can do it, it just takes a little bit of sacrifice for sleep. Sacrifice that sleep, and
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, if you don't have like responsibility, like you have to work full time, you have your family, kids, you have to provide for them. Maybe you're like just don't want to go back into debt, or like you're in your 40s like I am, then you really have to consider that question. Is going back to university worth it? Because school is expensive. Like whatever, like I don't know what the cheapest school is, but like let's say we say it's 20,000 a year. That's 80 grand, like, in 4 years, easy. And granted, like your degree will give you the skill, but the job is still, not as guaranteed as you think it is. But if you're in your early 30s, or you're in a position where maybe your past job you were able to save some money, or your family situation is such that if you go back to school, you will be okay, you'll be supported, like definitely consider computer science, especially if you're serious about developing. Like, I don't want to take anything away by, like, I don't want to be the channel that panders to like, oh, I'm self-taught. I happen to be self-taught. Or pander to like, I graduated boot camp and boot camps are awesome. Or I got a degree, everybody else sucks. Like, it's a gray area of a lot of things, because at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you this. If you are able to do the thing you say you're able to do, you do an interview and you prove to them you could do that thing, and then you have either portfolio or some interesting projects you built that kind of showcase your problem solving abilities, you're going to get hired. You know what I mean? It's maybe it's not going to be easier, because when you have a degree, which I found out, there's certain places where when they scan your resume, they just automatically take it out. But there's still plenty of jobs where you could get in and stuff like that. So I just want to say, like, because I know, like, when I started talking about computer science degree, like half the people left because I think they were freaked out, because I think a lot of people want to be like, what's the secret? What's the easiest way to do this thing? Alvin, what's the easiest way to do this? Let's talk about what is the, like, how, like is there like a, like, like a magic pill I could take that's gonna help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
It's
secret, like
called,
what
yeah,
supplements are you taking that allowed you to, like, be able to do this? You know, uh,
yeah. I mean, a lot of those people that left, I understand, but they're gonna miss
I don't
out
think
on
they laughed, by the way. I'm just saying.
the
I'm
way
just
that,
saying.
yeah, like I guess, I mean, drawing conclusions about anything before you know is wrong. But like, so when I had transferred, I moved, I moved towns. I moved closer to like an hour and a half away, um, to be closer to the campus, right? So I was in Newtown. It's a college town, um, and I linked up. I was like, linking up with people, trying to find people who had similar interests. What I'm getting to is the resources available if you do not want to get if you're in that situation and you don't have, you don't want to go into debt, or you don't have the time because of other commitments. Um, so I met this one person. I was going to start a business, uh, setting up a vertical gardening system. We had all the sensors, the boards, and the tent. We were setting it up in the house I moved into. Um, it obviously didn't work out, but I was trying to set up this business. I found someone who wanted to do a similar thing, who was already, working with a lot of sensors. He was about 20, 21. He was trying to get into the university, but he was having to pay the out of state tuition. So he was waiting to get his in state status before he registered for the university. Well, what I'm going to say is that his approach to learning is what people who don't want to go into debt, or have other time commitments can do, if they want to get this, get the skills that I'm getting. Is so this guy, he would go to the directory of the university and check out the classes that the computer science degree was offering, because that information is usually publicly available, unless it's usually publicly available, where you can find the course catalog and all of that. So he would read through the course catalog, look at the books that they were getting, see if they would be available off for free, or some other route, and then he would go about, and that's how he learned how to work with embedded systems and sensors and things like that. And then he would just do things like that, because like going back to being self-taught versus university versus boot camp. Okay, those things are all three different ways to go about learning something, but the core idea behind each one of those is that you are still having to learn something that you previously didn't know before, and that's the definition of teaching yourself. Some may have better resources available to you to answer any questions you have along the way. Some boot camps may be better than some universities. I don't see how, but it's possible. But yeah, so you're still teaching yourself something that you didn't know before. And to me, that's the definition of being self-taught. But yeah, so that's one of the ways you can find out if whatever you need to learn is available at your university, or your local university. Like, if it's go check to see what they're learning, and then go read those books, because the majority of what we're doing, we're having to read a lot if we don't know how to solve the problem, which has been every single class I've taken. It's like, okay, I don't really know how to write SQL, or I don't really know assembly. We had to read 40 or 50 pages a night on assembly, just to get through some of the problems. And they weren't like novel pages, but it was still like 40 or 50 pages of just, what is going on in assembly. And then it would go over the syntax, and things like that. And I'll shoot you the link if anyone's interested in
Yeah, that'll be
assembly, but
great.
there's a bunch of
Yeah.
resources. Anyways, but I'm getting off, I go off on that tangent, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, you're still going to have to read at least some to understand what you're doing. And whether or not you get the degree doesn't matter. You're still, in my opinion, you're still going to have to read and teach
Right.
yourself. So those are the resources available to you if you want to
Yeah.
teach yourself and still get the
Yeah.
quality education that a university is offering without
Yeah.
the
And
price.
Zaid Works here says he got a BS recently, like in CS and a bunch of other stuff, and he literally says the most important thing is just ability to learn
Yeah,
things
exactly.
quickly and fast, and that's basically what it is. And that's what you kind of learn is this idea of knowing how to approach a problem to be able to solve it on your own, and if you can't, know where to find the answers, which is like a lot of reading. By the way, guys, keep liking the stream if you like it. Like, your likes, like, I really appreciate them. They also help others to find it. And most importantly, I want you guys to remember that this stream is not for me and Alvin to talk about stuff. So continue to ask questions in the comments, because we want to help you in the best way we can. Because unlike, there's many channels out there. I don't care if you watch my channel, you watch other channels, but I'm 41 years old, and I know how important your time is for you. So I don't want to fluff stuff or sell you on these different ideas that don't work. I want to be honest with you so you guys could pick a path, do the work, and get to where you need to go. And so that's like very important for me, like to say this. By the way, another great, and we touched on this a little bit, if you're in the US, going to a state university, if you live in state, yes, you are going to save a lot of tuition. And that's why one of the reasons why his friend didn't apply right away, because they'll mark up the cost like by 20 grand easy if you're out of state. It's like so ridiculous. And then John had a point. Depends on the university. I dropped out of my because it was a waste of time and money. And sometimes, yeah, you get unlucky, in a sense that maybe you picked a school that just was bad for the degree that you were applying. Like, for instance, the university I went to a long time ago was University of New Haven. They were known for their criminal justice or criminal science, whatever. That degree, every other degree in that university sucked. I mean, didn't matter for me because I dropped out at 19 because my daughter was born, and so I had to go into the workforce. But the point is that at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you get the degree. There are resources out there. Like there's like Open MIT, there's like Coursera, bunch of other like places. So you guys don't have the lack of knowledge, but you do have to understand that you do have to get that knowledge somehow in order to continue to evolve as a developer. So I'm kind of losing track of where we were. Kind of this is my fault. My fault. Like, where were we? Where were we at?
No. One thing that I forgot to say was that also at the university, it's like we're not always able, and that's what that last guy commented on. Learn new things fast. I mean, yeah, I probably could have gotten through a lot of this if I just wrote, JavaScript or Python or something. But like they're always throwing something, like throwing a new language at you, and yeah, you have to be comfortable with not knowing something and learning it. So I mean, that doesn't require someone to go to a university to do. And like I recommended to you if you're learn another language, or at least, and you don't have to be good at it, just see how what you're using works on a deeper level. And just again, you don't have to write slam out code like a champion, but
right,
like go through and try to write a hello world, and then after the hello world, try to transfer some data somewhere, or try to just see how the syntax works with loops, and then see how that works, and then C. That's supposed to be a joke, It's basically all C.
Right. Yeah, because it all compiles to C. Yeah. But C is cool. like I mean, like I'm a nerd like at heart, you know, regardless of what people think. And I remember like my sister, and this is before I even like thought I was going to be a developer one day. I was still teaching like jujitsu. My sister's like, "What do you want to get for your birthday?" I told her to get me a C book. And there's like this old, like it's not that old, but like it's like I don't know, 2000 something. Um, and it's a book that had like a cover of this little bird hatching. It's like basic C, and then basically you learn all of the
Yeah.
C language, and at the end you build like a little blackjack game. And that's what I wanted for the birthday. And I think like you have to like and enjoy like the pursuit of learning to code. But the funny thing is, like I was asking Alvin, like, what do you do when you run into issues? Like you're like a computer science guy, and his answer I think was like, I still look stuff up all the time. You know, I can't just build
Yeah, yeah.
everything from scratch that I want. You still do everything we do as self-taught developers. It's just like, you know, so like, you know, it's all good. Let's do like one question before we continue, because I think it's a great question. Do you use any specific websites to work on coding challenges? Algo Expert, Lead Code, Code Wars, etc.
I mean, I know I personally don't. I just, I do the classes, and then I work on my own thing. But like, yeah, people are out there in my class. I mean, they're, in their early 20s, slamming out the computer science work, and then they're doing meetups where they're just slamming through Leak Code or slamming through, HackerRank, or, their challenges. Like, but they've been doing it for longer. And the one thing that I can say is like there's some people out there that they're amazing at what they do, and so it's just given me an opportunity to like be around those kind of people, be like pick their brain kind of. And how do you solve this problem? Although they're probably a decade younger than me, I have no problem.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, how do you solve this? And then that makes me better. So yeah,
But
everyone's
I
so good at
think,
those things.
yeah, I think like the assumption like I made about like you, like just based on the little conversation we had and kind of watching your YouTube videos, is that you're more interested in just understanding why things work and then just solving those problems that you encounter in your own
Yeah,
projects. It's not like
yeah,
you're chasing like this point system, like how many problems did I solve? What is my
yeah, yeah,
score? What is my thing? It's
yeah,
like you don't care about that. You just care about, do I
yeah,
understand this enough to solve the problem at hand? And do I understand it enough that when I do have those questions, I could answer them? And I think that's an important distinction to make, is that you need to do things to learn to understand, because you're in it for a long haul. So you could like maybe look up a bunch of solutions to Lead Code. Maybe you could go through some practice problems. And maybe when you get that interview, you're going to get the question that you solved before. And you're going to be like, great, I know the answer, and you feel it. But then when you get your job, like at the end of the day, it's like, did you get there through memorization, or did you get there by understanding? And I think those are two different things, and people could argue that with me, but I think you need to, like, I like your approach that you say like, don't rush, slow is fast, like understand, take your time, and you're gonna get there. And I think that's like super important. And in terms of like Lead Code and HackerRank, like just give my 2 cents. I tried HackerRank just for fun, and because one company that I applied to, in the future they're gonna switch this idea where they're gonna pre-screen applicants based on their HackerRank, like test that they take for the company. So the company's gonna give them a test through HackerRank, and then you do the test, and if you complete it, they know you have at least the basic knowledge for them to give you that interview. And I think that's going to be a thing in the future. But don't get hung up on Lead Code, HackerRank. Get hung up on learning to code, understanding the language, understanding what you're doing. And if you're a beginner, don't even bother going to Lead Code and HackerRank. Just do like Hello World applications, learn to understand. And my favorite place for beginners, it's Code Wars. It's like fun, it's not that stress. You get to practice some stuff, but at the end of the day, it's, develop the skill for the sake of becoming a better programmer, rather than getting points on your next like Lead Code like question. You know what I mean?
yeah. Like I want to add on to what you said on and then add on to my answer is, how I solve, like, what I do is I have an idea, um, and then I try to, create that idea. And throughout, like when I start with that idea, I run into the issues, or the not the issues, but the things that we encountered in our data structures class, in our algorithms class, or I use, I remember how we went over, complexity was a big thing in algorithms. It's like, is this function running as optimal as possible? Are you doing more than you need to? And how do you, do it in less steps? It's like, I start with the idea of what I want to build. And without a doubt, I always run into all those issues, all those things that we've gone over, data structures, algorithms, naturally. Like I don't. Yeah, if you go to LeetCode or those type of sites, you're going to have that knowledge without a doubt. But like for me to sit there and do a bunch of challenges right now, it wouldn't make any sense because I'm not 20. I don't have like 10 years to just develop that whole like knowledge base of solving every index algorithm out there. Like I would rather encounter the problem and then go back and be like, okay,
That's happening. Yep.
this is how I solve this algorithm. This is I need to solve this to make this happen. Rather than it would always be organically encountered rather than like memorize index algorithms, A to Z. So that's how I do it.
And I think that makes sense. And for me, it's the same. Like for me, I'm like, it's not a problem until it's a problem, and then when it's a problem, let's go ahead and solve it. Or if you're using a technology, I've been experimenting with GraphQL, and then GraphQL is based on graph data structures, and so I'm like, oh, like this is a good opportunity to learn more about it, to understand how it works, to understand how GraphQL does its queries and everything else, and all this other stuff. And so like I like that approach because then you're only doing the thing that you need to get ahead to where you're going, rather trying to like overwhelm yourself with just majority of the stuff that at the moment you're in are not the most important thing. And so like kind of my approach, like when should you learn algorithms? And I was kind of, I think like we talked about this, and I was kind of saying how, in university, you're going to learn algorithms when the class decides to teach you algorithms. But in my opinion, like when you're starting out, and this is more in a relationship to web development, it's like if you don't know a language, like let's say you don't know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, like you shouldn't be learning algorithms because you don't know the basics. You don't know the syntax like in the most basic sense, and you can't make like basic kind of projects. So learn the language that you're doing. Step 2, build few projects first. If you don't build any projects and you start doing algorithm, you have no idea what problems those algorithms are solving because you never encountered those problems in your project, and you don't understand why one would be better than the other. So build few projects on your own, and then when you start prepping for interviews, getting out there because you know what you're doing, you have like a portfolio with few projects, you could start spending more time on algorithms, the way they relate to an interview, if that's a thing for the companies you're applying. But for me, like I like your approach of like learn about it in an organic way than trying to force everything, like through a fire hose, especially when we all have limited amount of time. But like, what are you let's kind of just talk about some fun stuff. What are you currently working on your YouTube channel, like that people could go and check out? Let me actually drop a link, and I'm gonna push a lot of people to the YouTube channel because like before we get like talk about your project, sorry to steal the conversation again, but I am like I love YouTube, and the YouTube space is very interesting because there's people because hype sells, success stories sells, hard work doesn't sell anything. Like, so nobody wants to hear you have to work hard, you got to go into the weeds, you got to do this. So if you watch some of these channels, the most channels with most subscribers outside certain individuals like Brad Travis or another guy, they're done around this idea of like just getting you excited about the life you're going to have when you become a developer, but they don't really, they talk like, Tony Robbins talks like, you can do anything because you will be successful. Like, I don't even know what the hell that means. Like, like you could, like,
Books.
it's like,
Knowledge.
right. Exactly. Books, knowledge. I'm going to do a Ty Lopez commercial soon. It's going to be hilarious. I like just so excited about it. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna drop at some point. It's gonna be hilarious. But the point is that it's not helpful to you. But that's what sells. Everybody wants that mental masturbation of like this idea. It's like, oh, what could happen, or if I do this. But none of you are doing the work. And if you are doing the work, like props to you. But if you're like watching the life in a developer, or like what computer is this developer using, and you're not watching like channels like, Alvin's, where he's diving into solving real problems, and you're really thinking about code and not about like all that other bullshit. And I'm just gonna say that because it's my podcast, I could swear. But the point is, it's that you have to understand, if you want to become a developer or a programmer, you need to do those things. You know what I mean? If I want to get in shape, like, eating ice cream is not going to help me. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, the point is, like, you got to do the work and do all that stuff. And I just get sick and tired when people come to this channel and they start telling me like, it's all about chasing the money and the whatever. And it's all about like, bro, like I'm going to just be honest with you based on the statistics here. Out of like, and maybe I'm making it up, but I'm sure it's like close to this, so don't quote me exactly, but only like maybe like 5% of people that do any tutorial online actually take the action steps to get a job. That means 95% of you are going to fail. You're not going to get the job. And the reason why I'm here talking to you, because I just refuse to give up. That's plain and simple. The reason Alvin is doing what he's doing is because he has a path and he's going to do it until he succeeds no matter what. And what I want my channel to be about, not like this, like, oh, let's show some drone footage over some cool music, even though you're probably listening to some chill music right now while watching this. But like, I don't want to sell you on the hype. I don't want to sell you anything at this point. I want you to understand that it takes hard work. And if my channel would have a focus, it would be, how do you go from being stuck in a tutorial hell to actually getting your first job? Because nobody's kind of telling you what is that process. People talk about when they made it, you know what I mean? But they don't talk about the grind in between, the pain and the suffering. So that was like my little rant. Let's talk about the projects you're working on, Alvin. And I'll put the link for your channel like somewhere.
Yeah. So like, some of the videos will probably be about me going over CS 444. I mean, that will probably be that's coming up like in the next few months when the classes start. But until then, like, I'll be going over. So the videos have been really helpful for me to solidify the knowledge of any problem I'm encountering. That's a general answer. What I'm working on now is I'm using my page to host my blogs for right now, to host the write-ups that I do about the projects that I make. Like my project isn't a blog. I just want to make the blog out this way. Because I just love writing. I don't really care who reads it. Yeah. Writing helps me become better. Yeah. It just, this whole thing, like recording videos, and it just makes me better. But the projects that I plan on working on, they involve Stripe. I used to, before I was a forklift driver, I was at a call center. It was not an outbound, but it only took inbound requests from customers who were using the Stripe API. So I was talking with a lot of business owners that were having problems with their dashboard. Why they weren't getting any. Why they were in test mode rather than live mode. So that probably was why they weren't receiving payments at their business. I mean, so like I have a lot of
figured out.
Yeah, like I know the Stripe API pretty well, and I want to build a few projects for my ideas with Stripe. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so like most of my videos they won't be tutorials. They're just me kind of journaling if I encounter a problem and I solve it, I'll rehash the problem and go through it step by step in the video. And then like maybe that'll be helpful to someone else who encounters the same issue. or is just interested in whatever problem it is. But yeah, basically they would have to be encountering the same issue,
Yeah.
um, or a similar one,
Yeah.
or it might give them an idea on how to solve their problem that you know
What I
that's
like
going on.
about like the fact that you're not pandering to a certain like group, you're just like, here's the problem I had, this is how I solved it. So it's like real like legitimate like dev
Yeah,
stuff. Like you're
yeah,
like working on development. I think that's important. And one thing like also DevOps Directive asked if the blog is live yet, and can we drop a link if it
not
is.
yet,
Not yet,
not
but
yet.
when it gets there, we'll definitely share it. But one thing I want to say, actually, DevOps Directive, thanks for like staying this long, watching this crazy. Alvin is making the whole show today, which is fantastic. So if you didn't hit the like button, hit the like button. But one thing I heard like DevOps Directive talk about, which I thought was genius, and this is kind of comes to this idea of like talking about like solving problems either in a blog or in a video and putting it out there. And I know DevOps Directive, he makes a lot of like videos in his space kind of talking about problems or solutions he's solving, and he's putting it on LinkedIn. And that's a good way to show people out there like you know what you're talking about, so it's like you're already helping people to pre-screen you in terms of your knowledge base and understanding. And then if you're talking in your video about a problem that you solve that somebody might be experiencing, you're going to be the guy that they're going to search out, because they're like, hey, he just had this problem, he just solved it, let me reach out to this guy, and so like I kind of started to do that. So like it's funny because nobody watches like coding videos or tutorial videos, especially from smaller channels, because that content is not interesting to a lot of people. But for me, I'm like, let me start simple, talk about like the easier problems that I could talk about, so I could think through problem solving, thinking through code, and put it to a video so I could start sharing on my LinkedIn, and eventually work up to bigger problems that I solve, where a person who will see that video on LinkedIn, they'll be like, oh, Paul definitely understands this aspect of it. So, and that's kind of, I'm like, that's a good way to kind of market your like authority. But even outside of that, to your point, just rehashing the solution that you learn, I find it that I learn more through teaching, even though there's no viewers watching it. So that's kind of like, crazy. And I think like a lot of people, even if you're not thinking of starting a YouTube channel or blogging, I think you should have some sort of journal where you rehash the stuff you learn over and over again, because it kind of helps you to rewire it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an important. I mean, if I had to redo it, I would say that the thing that I wish I would have done earlier is as soon as I solve the problem, go over the problem again and solve it again, and then understand how I solved that problem, rather than saying, "Oh, the code works." I'm stepping
Right.
away real quick because I don't want it to explode.
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, 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 yeah,
um,
yeah. I remember when I took like a math class, and you learn like all these formulas. My teacher literally said like, after you solve one like formula, put different variables and solve it again, and solve it again, and do it like bunch of times in a row, just to kind of help you, like, because with each iteration it just makes more sense to you, and then you remember it more. Just the fact that you solved one
yeah,
challenge once. And I kind of remember like doing a challenge like a while ago. I wrote the code, I talked about it, and then I realized that thinking back about it now, I kind of remember what I did. And so I'm like, holy crap, like it is very important to go back and review something 2, 3 times and 4 times. So one thing that I started doing in the projects that I'm building, I'll build the projects. It's all from scratch. I look up the stuff that I need to do. I learn the new things. But then I will build another project or a piece of it similar to reinforce the thing that I learned in the previous one, or like, and to kind of rehash it. Because I think it's important, like you said, to kind of not try to do things fast, but try to learn things to understand.
yeah. Because everything builds on each other. It's like, that's why we have requirements. You have to take discrete math before you take, theory of computation, and you have to take those two things either, before you take algorithms, and then you have to have, those things. You have to build the foundation. It's just like, so it's like, learning something fast isn't going to. I mean, if you are one of those prodigies, you're probably not struggling because you just know how to. Like, you just
Yeah.
look at it like, okay, that's great. Like those people are awesome. I could probably learn a lot from them. But like it's you take things slow. You understand how it works, and then you have to. My goal is to be good. My and then eventually I'll be fast. I'm much faster. Like I was telling you, um, is before I took that first course, I jumped into and I started looking at how to make a box in a web page just for some reason, and
CSS, yeah.
like I was so excited that I can make a box. But now it's like and those earlier problems that I was encountering at that time, I could solve no time. It would take me days to solve a problem. Now it's like I look back and it's like 5 minutes of work, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you're gonna be
It's not that hard.
you're going to improve. It's a journey. It's not like it's a whole marathon. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
like when I talk to people, like there's everybody different, and I'm not saying that chasing money is not
yeah,
a bad
everybody's
thing, but it's
different.
kind of hard to chase money when you don't have like a curiosity to the thing that you're doing. Like I could tell you, like, and I'm like the same way, and I find a lot of other developers are the same, is that you study things to kind of satisfy your curiosity and build that understanding. And then something that you said to me resonates with me because you said you want to become better as a like
Yeah.
at what you do. And for me, like the first job I started, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I got paid 13.25 as a React developer, which is insane. Like you can't live off it. It's terrible. I just needed experience. I did not have the confidence, and I got that job at 39 when I started. And I make more than that now. So like if you put in the work, you're going to get there. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that like I didn't care about it. And obviously, like if you have a family, don't work for 13.25. You're not going to be able to support them. Luckily, like the time when I made that transition, my fiance, she was away finishing her degree. My daughter's in the Navy because she's 22 now. And so like I had the freedom. But what I'm saying is that like the most important thing for me is that I just want to develop the experience to become a better developer, better programmer. Because at the end of the day, if you strive to become better programmer, you will always get the high paying jobs. You know what I mean? But if that because it's like, you know, if you become the best you can be at a certain skill, you're gonna get paid at the level you achieve. And so for me, that's number one. Kind of like you want to get better at your craft. I want to get better at craft. And like I'm sure if you you ask DevOps directives, he will say like the same thing to you guys. That's the fact. And like a lot of people like they wanna like find the quickest way to get to the money. And what happens when you think that way, it's like you're constantly trying to put out like a fire. Like you have this urgency and you rush around and you make stupid decisions and you make bad mistakes because you assume that making more money is going to solve all your problems. So when I used to have my own business, like I made like a lot more money like that I do now. I'm actually finally catching up to what I used to make. So when I switched to web development, I took a pay cut. So when I was running my own business, after I paid all the bills, after everything else, like whatever, I was making around 80,000, depending on a year, 90,000 sometimes. Guys, pay your taxes. That's a whole other conversation we could have. But you know, when I became a developer, like working for 13.25, it's like a huge pay cut. And little by little, you start developing the skill. And as you get better, you will have better paid opportunities. So now, like, you know, and I like to be like open about what I do. I just got a contract role. And for me, this is like great. It's $40 an hour. Like you work full time. Obviously, you know, like the company that I'm working at, you don't get any health benefits, but it's definitely farther like from 13.25 to $40 an hour. And I was able to get there from a year and a half of experience. So if you focus on doing the work, focus on developing your skill and constantly striving to do better, you guys going to have these opportunities that will arise, you know, and, you know, DevOps obviously agrees. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, 100%. And then we got Jordan Foster. So many times I sped through something because I think it's basic or I know it. to go a little bit farther, and like I shouldn't have skipped that section, then have to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do that still all the time, and I try to remind myself, slow down, take it easy. And one thing that I found out, like have a narrow like when you go to computer science degree, I'm just going to say this right now, is like the whole point of it is to get a broad exposure to a lot of different stuff. As a self-taught developer, sometimes it's hard to be able to keep all that like in control. So I would say, when you're starting out, narrow your like thing that you're going to do. So for me, is like I first decided I'm going to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, and basic REST API, right? That was like my thing. And now that I'm a little bit better, like I'm kind of leveling up. Now I'm like all the stuff I mentioned, now I'm adding TypeScript, Redux, and GraphQL. You know what I mean? And then my next step after that, I'm not there yet, is like, okay, let's do full stack development with JavaScript. I've done a little bit with C#, but I want to kind of keep everything under one language. And one example I want to tell you is that when I got my first job, I was a JavaScript developer, and they told me you need to learn C#. I'm like, great, I'm going to learn C# because why? My job requires me. This contract role that I have, I got picked up as a front-end engineer, but if I want to kind of extend my valuability to the company, all their backend is in Python, and they told me, look, if you start learning Python and you're able to handle, more of the backend load that our senior developers have no business of doing, like we're going to give that to you, and you could make some more money. And so I'm like, great. Like I don't mind learning Python, And so the point is this idea, like eventually once you understand the basics of programming, you'll be able to make those transitions to other languages without like too much of a hassle. Alvin and I talked about, like, everything has an if statement and the basic logic. Everybody's got the loops, everything. Like it's not like you're
Loops, conditions.
reinventing, right? You're not reinventing
Yeah.
the wheel, and stuff like that. So it is what it is. Let's see here what this guy's saying. Roger Williams, thank you for adding to the conversation. Yeah, in all my CSS classes, I basically had to teach myself the material. Most of the teachers sucked, and I just read PowerPoint slides. Well, I'm sorry you had bad teachers, By the way, if you want to see a great example of like an amazing teacher, it's obviously the guy from, was it Harvard? The CS degree guy, like CS 50. He's just so energetic. I just watch his videos just because he's so. But if you want to watch someone on YouTube that is like a crazy dude and like got this thing for teaching, like I don't know if you guys ever saw Coding Train channel. Check out Coding Train because the guy's nuts. I think like I don't know like how many mushrooms he does, but it's a legitimate programming channel, by the way. Don't go there expecting someone to be like live in the code of like, you're gonna go there and be like, oh shit, like I wasn't prepared for this much of code to be on one screen. But the guy's nuts, So we kind of like all over the place. But to kind of bring everything together, you decided to do your computer science degree. And if you're able to, I say everybody should have a computer science degree if you want to be in the field of computer science. But at the same time, we talked about this idea, the real skill that you're developing from computer science degree is this ability to learn and this ability to solve problems. And just because you went through a computer science degree doesn't mean that we can't find that and build that experience as self-taught developers. And you talked about this idea, like, in the most like hardcore place, you could literally look up what curriculum that college is using, find the books, and do that self-study pace. There's also open MIT courses and everything else. So the point is, like, you are able to find that knowledge if you're willing to do the work. So is a CS degree required? It helps a lot. I'm just going to say that straight up right now. But at the same time, if you don't have it, it's not impossible. And that's something like, Alvin said, like, when you and I talked privately, is that like, yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't get a job. It just means that you have to show or prove that you could do the work somehow, And so, anything you want to add, like, to anything I missed, anything like you were like, if I were to say this, people would be like, save a lot of time in their learning journey. Oh yeah, like magic formula.
I would say
the magic
I
pill.
mean, the magic formula. I would say start with an idea if I was gonna have to make a magic formula. That's how
Work
I go about
hard,
it. That's how I learn
do
things
the
best
work.
because I have to. Yeah, yeah. Not even. I mean,
More
that's a
drone
given.
footage. You
But
need more drone footage. If
yeah, yeah.
that's what you need.
But like really though, I would say, you know, maybe this will resonate with someone else, but I, I, it's really, I'm not. It's harder for me to learn something if I'm not like, you know, if I don't have a need to solve the problem. Like I'm not just gonna sit there and learn a bunch of algorithms. I mean, I will, but I mean, I start with an idea first, and I go try to solve that idea. Um, and I think that like if you approach it from that viewpoint, the language will never matter.
Right.
The language will come up as yourself. I know, but like that's for the self-taught person because I mean at the university we have to learn a language regardless if we're interested in it or not, or you know yeah, they don't care. This is what we're learning. You know, this is the course you're taking now.
Yeah.
But like if I was self-taught, you know, I would do it how I'm doing it now is, you know, take an idea and let the idea determine what language I need to use because the language it doesn't matter. Like you can connect Python to, you know, JavaScript with a module. You can connect anything. You can use C and Python with Python. Um, but they all use like JavaScript uses sockets. Python uses sockets. C has sockets. I'm pretty sure assembly has, well, C has to have sockets because assembly enables C to have sockets. So it's like everything is connected. It's just how deep you want to go. And I say, don't take this the wrong way, but the deeper you go, the better.
No, 100%. And
So
like
yeah, yeah,
one brief, like one easy example. So this is something you talked about, and obviously like I'm still learning, and I'm not even ashamed to like say it. But like I was working on this project. I told you this idea about my YouTube thing, and like this idea of storing like chapters, like whatever that will have a
yeah,
key. And
yeah,
I was actually going to store everything in an array. And if you were going to do a lookup, like I'd have to loop through the array, see like whatever, you know, the text I'm searching through. And you were like, just use a
yeah,
hash table because it's faster.
yeah, yeah.
And so, and that's like the point I'm trying to make. Don't like kill yourself over the fact that data structures are hard and that, you know, they're hard to learn. But, and at some point, like you will learn him like naturally, kind of like this is an issue I had. And right now, I kind of knew this about hash tables, and it's awesome that Alvin mentioned that to me because now I know 100% that's a better approach. But let me tell you like how this would transpire naturally. So let's say I implement that in my application the way I wanted to, and then let's say now I have so much data that performance difference was actually will start to show in my application, and then I'm like, something's up. Is there a better way to do this than looping through a huge like array of things to look something
Mm-hmm.
up? And then maybe in this case hash table would be the solution, and that would be like how I would get there. And that's when I would learn about hash tables, learn about how to use them, you know, and how to like, you know,
Exactly.
work with them, and that'll be like the thing. And so like you're gonna get through all those things. Just the one thing I'm going to tell you here, and something that I encounter in my learning, by the way, and it's kind of going to your point of like, go the deeper you get, the better it is. And that just, anyway,
Exactly.
so it's like, you get it. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that when you complete a project, right? I'm going to use it in a very simple example. Let's say like I went
Mm-hmm.
to first grade and I did first grade math. And then next year, I took first grade math again. And then the third year, I took first grade math again. And then the fourth year, first grade math again. So 4 years in a row, I'm taking first grade math. So you're not getting better, you're not learning. So when you complete a project, definitely review, understand what you did. But for your next project, try to solve a slightly higher problem in your comfort zone, so you're not repeating the same thing and building the same thing over and over again. Because after a certain point, like I'm at a point with HTML and CSS that I don't need to make any more HTML and CSS projects to become better at CSS. Like I understand it. And if there's something I don't know, I know how to look it up. And so like I need to start constantly pushing yourself, going 20% past your comfort zone, whatever it is for you. And that's going to
Yeah.
force you to go deeper, deeper, and deeper and understand that knowledge. So definitely be mindful of that to get, like
Yeah.
just to understand that it's like a very important part of it is that proactively trying to challenge yourself more and more and more. And so every project like this is recent I started to do, I try to kind of add something new to it that is like I don't know yet, just so I could continue learning you know
Yeah. Like for operating systems, we like I was saying, we were getting comfortable in sockets, having to send, a private key over using we use a Caesar cipher. It's not secure, but it helps you understand how like encryption works. So, but it's not secure. But anyway, so we had to make a Caesar cipher, send it to a decryption server, and then send the private key over to for it to be decrypted, or the string to be decrypted with the key. But anyway, so we were using sockets a lot, and then towards the end of the operating systems class, we pretty much had to do some of the similar things, except not in C. He had us complete the last project in Rust, just to see the difference of how easy it is compared to doing it in C. So the point is, like when you learn something, like if you know JavaScript, like how to write, the backend with Node, or just, like even straight up Node, you just create a server in Node instead of Express. Go and try to do the same thing in like another backend language, just to experience the difference. That's one thing we had a running joke about is my assembly teacher. He used to work for HP, but like his whole thing was he wanted us to create the libraries in assembly and then import them into C so we could experience the difference of how much easier C is compared to assembly, just to appreciate it.
yeah
And then like see the similarities and see, okay, once you see the similarities, you understand what you have to do. Because if you don't know what you have to do, like, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. Again, that points back to what I was saying in the beginning is, writing out the problem, how you're going to solve it. That's the whole battle right there. And then the language is determined by the problem. So, I mean, that's the easy pill right there. That's the pill is, define the problem and then code it out. And then to get it a little better, try to do it in another language. That will make you better 100%.
yeah, no, that makes sense. And like I gotta say, Evan, thank you for like agreeing to come to and doing this talk, because like I definitely really want to have like a no BS show where people just get the truth. And it's just amazing to get all the different perspectives, where the main goal is to get better as a developer and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
craft, rather than like whatever working life of a developer. It's like whatever stupidity that people do, because at the end of the day, all that stuff wastes time. Like like I'm gonna say, like if you're watching my YouTube channel and you're not coding, stop watching my YouTube channel. Like go spend some time and develop stuff. Like I have this application that basically tracks the time I spend in my code editor. And like if like you see my history, like like I'm spending 6-7 hours a day like trying to work on stuff. Like is it all good stuff? Probably not, but like I'm constantly grinding, trying to improve my skill. And being older, like I feel like I'm never good enough, so I'm constantly like suffering from that imposter syndrome. And so I'm trying to spend every opportunity I have get better, like just so I'm more competitive with like other people. And by the way, guys, if you like what Alvin was putting down today and you didn't like the stream yet, get the like number up. I mean, and I definitely would love to have him back anytime he wants to, and maybe come up with some ideas. And definitely go check out his channel. I'll drop the link again, and I'll keep if you miss it on the live stream, I'll keep telling you guys to go see his channel because I really like, the type of videos he's making, because like I much rather have you guys follow real developers, like even more real developers than I am, because I want you guys to literally like, what will make me happy? Like, what will make me happy is that you get the job that you wanted and you get paid for it without, BS in the middle of trying to kind of like, like, like there's channels out there like Chris Sean, like I'm sure he'll never watch like my channel or like what have you, but like it's basically like mental masturbation. You just watch like in life of a dev. This is what I did. This is my cool Mac. This is go to like Team Treehouse. Like smash this, that. Like you're not all that time you're wasting. You're not coding. Like I don't care if I get hate because honestly, like this is the thing I'm gonna say. Like you could hate me, you could like me. I don't care because people that resonate with the same message that Alvin presented today, the message that I present, people that want to make a difference. Like one thing Alvin said at the beginning of this live stream is that he was working as a forklift operator and he just got sick and tired, and he knew that the only way to get to where he's going is to act and do, right? And that's why I thought it was funny, like when he's like, I just make these videos, and he's like, I don't care, I don't pander to anybody, I just do my thing, because he knows doing his thing is what's going to give him his success. He doesn't need like self-reaffirmation like I do with likes. So. Yeah. Like it's like he does. He just wants to be like, this is the problem I'm having. You like it or not? Like this is what I'm solving. Because at the end of the day, he's gonna go places, and he doesn't need to talk about his experience or how awesome he is, because he knows where he's going. He knows what he's doing. He knows that he's solving problems. And some of the things that we talked about off screen, I'm like, man, he has some excellent ideas, and the idea you told me, I hope you pursue it, because that was phenomenal, and that would definitely change the world for the best. Like I mean, it was like amazing. And Alvin, like I don't know how much time you have and if you want to like add anything more, but I don't want to keep you longer than you want to be on here, because I could talk forever, as everybody knows. So maybe we could do like another like
we could switch topics. I mean, on what has
yeah,
also
let's
kept
do like
me going in this is like staying healthy. Also, always got to push
we did
that.
Talk about that 100%.
Yeah, like it really step away from the computer. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do this, but if you can't solve the problem.
Let me say like quick goodbye. Sorry, Jordan. Hey, have a good one. Thanks for checking out the stream. Sorry to interrupt you. Jordan comes a lot. I want to make sure that I say goodbye to him. Very good supporter. Helps out in our Slack channel too.
Yeah.
And then and DevOps giving a lot of great props. Hey, thanks for staying for the whole live stream. I hope I didn't scare you away with my level of podcasting, because I do want to work with you in the future, and I really have lots of different things I want to talk to you about, especially like how it relates to Docker and why people should learn and all this other stuff. But he says, enjoy the discussion at Alvin, looking forward to following along with you on everything you're doing. And me too, man. That's why I just want to I want to have this channel to have people that are in the thing that they're doing and talking about, because I want this to be for legitimate people that want to be developers, and that's what their passion is. But sorry, talked about health and exercise and how it's important.
No, that's pretty much it. It's just do it. it's. I mean, I'm not saying it's helped me just step away from a problem. I think people would benefit from, taking this, just step away. That's what I would have told myself. Like I used to slam my head on the keyboard, not literally, but I would just bite onto a problem and never let it go. And then I would, 11 hours deep, I would just have to go to sleep and, have 3 days left for the assignment to be done. Step away and come back, and it's the problem is right. The answer is right there. Time away from the computer is good too. Just I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's something that took me for. Go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
Yeah. The web is the web is great, but there's so many aspects of development that you could get into. Like you could, I wish I have so many, I have so many ideas of just, there's so many things that you can create with like embedded systems. Like all you need is make a order for a 3D printer for a model you make on Blender, and you have, an idea that you throw onto a circuit board that fits into that thing you printed in Blender, and then you just start selling that on. Like that doesn't take you knowing a bunch of algorithms. That just takes you taking a great idea that you had, learning. You probably just do it in Python and just sell that thing as a whole package. I mean, you could write your own, through writing your own security system with cameras and everything. You could learn about how to encrypt those individual devices so that an outside attacker can't, get into it and see your cam. That would teach you a lot about security and things like that. It's like the web is one small fraction of all the possibilities that are available. And by just having an idea and some curiosity, it does not require a degree. It doesn't require, advanced knowledge of algorithms. It just requires, that good idea and this, that doesn't have to be a great idea. That idea can evolve and spawn other seeds. Like a tree throws other seeds on the ground, and other things start growing. You just take it from there, but take that idea and just go with it. Yeah. So got off on like a rant there.
No, it's good. And I just kind of come back a little bit to this idea of like leaving and being able to walk away from a computer. That lesson was really hard for me to learn. And I realized sometimes you're stuck at a problem and your brain hasn't processed it enough, but you're still trying to force it. So I go for a walk or go throughout my day. And then over time, you actually get the solution. Like I'll be like at the Starbucks and be like, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't take that into account. And then I go to my computer and I'm able to do it. So a very good point to kind of like to remember and to remind people, because a lot of times I do get stuck. So I started like if I'm stuck but I still need to work because I'm at work, I'll move on to something else, like as a refresher. Don't just bang your head against the keyboard, because I used to do that for a long time because it's very easy to waste time, man. Yeah, it's amazing, dude. Like I still can't say enough like how awesome it is to have you, because I think like this has been like one of the, like I did have a lot of great podcasts, but this is the type of stuff that I really want to do because it brings a lot of value, a lot of great perspective, and I want people to understand that at the end of the day, it's really about being good at what you do and just solving problems. And there is no magic formula, and every real developer that you talk about, they still have the same struggles. Even senior engineers, sometimes they still have to look stuff up. They might just be able to do it faster because their understanding of the whole on a deeper level is greater than yours, but they still sometimes get stuck and have to think through problems. So don't feel that if you don't know something and you have to work through something is like somehow something's wrong with you. It's just the nature of like the job. It's the nature of like what we do.
Yeah.
So, Yeah.
I don't know. What else can I mean, it'll just come to me, and maybe it'll be on a future podcast, but
Yeah. We covered a lot. Like I think like if people watch this and take into all the little things that we talked about, like I think, and they apply it, they're going to be ahead of like a lot of people. And I think like just quick recap, and maybe we'll finish it off because like, it's been like a good hour and 40 minutes, and we gave up all the valuable advice. So it's like, it's good to end before I start telling drinking stories. It's like why you shouldn't drink. But to recap, it's like, yes, Alvin decided to get a computer science degree. And if you are able to, go get a computer science degree. But the thing, what they're selling you as a computer science degree is the introduction to wide overview of what is computer science, but more importantly, the ability to think for yourself logically solve problems. And if you can't solve the problem, knowing how to think through it systematically to get to a solution. And all this stuff you're able to find on your own, but that will require you, looking up computer science catalog and seeing what textbooks they're covering. Because one thing, I'm going to tell you this right now, and there's no web development course that I found that shows you how to solve problems. A lot of the stuff that you're learning is pre-canned. It was already designed by the instructor, and you're just basically going through exercise of copying what the instructor already solved beforehand. And that's one thing I want to talk to DevOps directives. If you're still on, I just want to mention this, just so if I forget, you could remind me. Through his mechanical engineering degree and that system thinking, how can you develop that skill on your own if you're not going to college? And kind of we talked about it in today's podcast with Alvin, but there's no course online, not on Udemy, not on Treehouse, not on Pluralsight, not on insert any course that actually teaches you how to do that. There's some books, there's a book called Think Like a Programmer, I think. And so that's something that I'm curious, because if you know how to think about systems, how to organize systems, how to solve problems in a systematic way, that is the most important skill. And I guess that is the value of a computer science degree, because there's no other course that teaches that. And so I think, just thinking out loud, it would be nice for me to create a resource, now we could talk more about this with you and other people. What is a good place to go and actually develop that skill, outside of the way we do it, where you build your personal project, you basically fail, you learn something, and then you basically understand, through your failure, oh, if I've done this way, or this is a gotcha, and you kind of develop that, skill through trial and error. But it'll be nice to kind of also have some resources that help people kind of get there and, and figure that out. And let's see, the hologram nunchucks is going. Time for some dinner. Man, have a great dinner. Thanks for checking us out, and thanks for all the great info, Alvin and Paul. Man, thank you, hologram nunchucks. Every time I see that name, I'm just like, that's an amazing name. Hologram nunchucks, that's good. Yeah, so this would be a perfect time just to end it, because it was amazing. Yeah. Again, check out Alvin's YouTube channel. I'll drop the link again, and I'll keep, talking about Alvin's channel, just because I want to see what other cool content he'll put down, and then maybe when we figure stuff out, maybe we could find out even more useful stuff that he or I, together with him, could talk about to help you guys make stuff happen. So. Thanks for watching, everybody. And again, if you still haven't smashed the like button, smash it before we end the stream in 10 seconds. But with that being said, thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel. Take care, guys.
All right. See you.